Most food and drink brands spend thousands making their product look ticketable for Gen Z, but they forget one thing. The palate of a 20 years old is much more complex than the palate of a 50 years old. Yes, I've said it. Today, we are talking about why your safe flavor is the reason why Gen Z is leaving. Today, we are talking about why your safe flavors is the reason why Gen Z is not buying. If you're new here, hello and welcome to the Food Lab podcast, a place where we talk honestly about what it takes to build a food and drink brand that stays on retailer shelves. So before we get into the trends themselves, I think it's worth spending a little bit of time of talking about who Gen Zs are as a consumer, because it really changes your approach to the brief. Gen Z are roughly born between 1997 and 2012, and their purchasing power is growing very quickly right now. Because the oldest Gen Z, they are now in their late 20s, some of them are even parents, and therefore they are becoming a really significant part of the food and drink market. What makes them interesting from a flavor development perspective is obviously not just about their age, but is the way they relate to food. And there are a few things that really stand out for me, and bear in mind I'm a millennial. The first thing is they discover food online before they even taste it. They will actually see a dish or a product on TikTok or on Instagram. They will watch someone eat it and see their actual feedback and their actual reaction, sometimes even the ranking of the product. So that already shape their expectations before they even try the product. The second thing is, I think it is really important for anyone working in new product development, is that Gen Z are genuinely adventurous eaters. When you look at Innova's data, 56% of Gen Z consumers actively seek out for new flavors when they are shopping. So you know what that means, right? They are not looking for safe flavor. They're actually looking for something that is new and exciting. 57% of them say they prefer street food inspired flavors in a packaged food. The third thing, which I think is again very interesting, is that Gen Z food choices are often emotional and contextual. It means they maybe want something that is bold and in your face during the day to just energize them, but they also want something that is soft and calming in the evening. It means that you can't just think about flavors in isolation. You have to think about when and where your consumers is eating or drinking your product and what they need from that moment. Okay, let's get into the trends right now. I want to walk you through 5 areas that I think are relevant for food and drink founders right now. For each one, I'm going to explain what it is, why it resonates with Gen Z, and what it could mean for your product. The first trend is what some reports are calling Asian Flavors 3.0. And I want to take a little bit of time to explain what it is because it's a little bit more complex than it sounds. For a long time, food and drink brands have used labels such as Asian inspired quite often and quite loosely. And nowadays, Gen Z see through that immediately. They basically not impressed anymore by a generic Asian inspired sauce. So what is landing with them right now is something that is much more specific and actually much less concerned about authenticity in the traditional sense. What we are seeing is comfort-led fusion, which is also called nostalgia. Think about Korean meets Italian, or Thai-inspired flavors applied to very familiar Western format. So it's more having unexpected combinations that feel exciting rather than something exotic. Let me give you an example and apologize in advance for the pronunciation. The example is with the Samyang's Bulldog Carbonara Ramen. So that absolutely took off because It takes something that is very familiar, the carbonara, and it brings all of the heat from the Korean culture. And it creates just something that works. So it's not about being authentic or traditional. It's just being unexpected, but it works. I think Gen Z generally wants to be surprised. So I think this is important to hold on to that. For your NPD team or someone who is looking after your product development, the question to ask is not how do I make an Asian product? It would be more something around which specific flavor from a specific place or culture could bring something new and interesting in a format that they already know and familiar with. The second trend is complex spice, and this one is very exciting from a development point of view. Heat has evolved. It's not just about how hot something is anymore. So what Gen Z is responding to is layers and complexity around the heat. So heat that has other dimensions to it. For example, we see a lot of sweet heat, like hot honey or hot maple, where you have the spices, the warmth, the sweetness together, which can create something very moreish. We have salty heat, like spicy feta, for example. So here you have the creaminess and the saltiness that balance all of the spicy notes. Then we have the zingy heat, like garlic, lime, and chili glazes that we see very often. So here you have the citrus that lifts completely everything up. If you take the Thai fried chicken wave, for example, that became so popular in the previous years, it just kind of pull everything together. That's probably why it's working so well. So again, it's not about how hot it is. It's about all of the different layers, unexpected layers that you can build around the spicy notes, but also the complexity of the flavor profile when you select specific chilies, for example. The beauty of this trend is it translates across a lot of different categories. It can be snacks, sauces, marinades, bakery, dairy. The third trend is around the street food energy into a packaged product. The research is very clear on this. Gen Z consumers love street food because it feels real, it feels culturally rooted, is affordable, is shareable. Gen Z want the same feeling in a product that they buy in supermarket. The specific flavors showing strong growth right now are, and again, sorry for my pronunciation, chat masala, ponzu, chipotle chili, garlic parmesan, spiced maple, and cotija cheese. They are not just spicy or savory, they are named things, named origin and named flavor profile, very specific. The fourth trend is, I think, something that is going to keep on growing, is the idea of unexpected combinations. Fruit coffee, crisp-topped dishes, birria ramen, coffee hot sauce. Things that on paper should not work, but they are genuinely delicious when they are well done. And the reason that resonate with Gen Z go back to what we talked about earlier and their relationship with what is unexpected. They love finding something surprising and then sharing it. In retail, what looks like in practice is product with a lot of versatility and personalization. Things that can work across different occasions rather than having something very narrow or defined single use, for example. From a product development perspective, these trends required a very solid understanding of flavor pairing. Not just which flavor tastes good together, but why they work at a sensory level. And the fifth area I want to flag is drinks, because there is shifts happening in this area and they are quite significant. We are seeing two big movements right now. The first one is called dirty sodas, which are highly customizable and non-alcoholic drinks that mix soft drinks, syrups, cream, and fruit in, again, an unexpected way. So very visual, very personal, and very shareable. And the second is the rise of the low alcohol or alcohol-free options. But this time, they are genuinely flavor first and exciting to drink. In both cases, the flavor direction is sweet, sour, and fruity. Gen Z are leaning towards drinks that deliver a real flavor experience, that look interesting, and that feel like the drink have been made for them. And you can already see it in different retailers. Fruity beers, fruit-infused variants, flavored non-alcoholic options, all of these are growing. So if you're working on a drink product and the flavors feel a little bit flat or lack of complexity or feel a little bit generic right now, this is definitely worth having a look at. Now, you can follow every single of these trends and still have your product delisted in 6 months. And why? Because of the 3 mistakes. The first one is going too broad. So again, if we come back to our example, if you want to do something that is Asian-inspired flavors, my first question for you, if you were my client, will be which part of Asia, which cuisine, with specific dishes have you tried or do you have in mind for your development? Asian-inspired does not give your NPD team or your flavor suppliers enough material to work with. And like we said, Gen Z are not going to be interested. They will be too bored of having something that is so vague. So the more specific your flavor direction is, the better your chances of getting it right, especially with Gen Z. And the second one you're very familiar with if you're listening to me on this podcast is ignoring your product first. The same flavor will behave completely differently depending on the type of product is applied to. A hot honey flavor that is in a protein snack bar will be very different from having it into a feta, a dip, a sauce or a biscuit, especially if your product is very functional or is plant-based. So something that is quite challenging to start with. So your product, before anything that flavor it, is very important to understand. And how all of the different ingredients and the flavors are going to react with your product is something that you have to understand very quickly before committed to any flavor direction or any trend. And the third mistake is actually treating Gen Z as one single customer. They are not. A 19 years old who is discovering food through TikTok and a 27 years old Gen Z parent who is cooking for the family are not going to have the same expectations on the type of product and flavors that they want. So knowing which part of Gen Z you're actually speaking to, the different challenges that they have, their reason for buying will change completely your flavor brief. Those are the mistakes. And actually, when you put them back together, they are all come to the same thing. What they all have in common is not knowing enough who you are developing your food and drink product for. So once you have understood your product and all of the flavor characteristic, and you start thinking about the flavor pairing that always mentioned, so which flavors and flavor profile may fit your product better, then you can focus on your target consumer. So all of the trends that I mentioned in my episode, they are like a map. So you need to know which part of the map applies to the person you're developing your product for. If, for example, you have identified few flavors that can go well with your product, then you can look back at the trends I mentioned today and look at the ones that is a fit between your product and the trend. Then you zoom in. who is your Gen Z consumer specifically, what they are already eating, what they love, what takeaway, what restaurants they go for, what will make them pick up your product over something else on the shelf. This will allow you to narrow down the flavor profile to a T. So then you will have a flavor brief and a flavor direction with a lot of characteristics that not only going to help your NPD team when they do the product development and helping you select the samples that go forwards, what type of tweak do you need to do, but it will also help your flavor suppliers or your contract manufacturer with a very detailed brief of the flavor profile that fit your product and your target consumers. When you do your tastings of your samples, whatever stage you are in your product development, always compare them not just to other packed product and sometimes your competitor, but actual product from street food or restaurant, actual dishes and actual product that inspired the flavor direction that you went for. This is what I would call a reality check. Be sure you're going to the right flavor direction. And it also keeps you grounded in what your consumers actually relate to. This is exactly the kind of work that I do with my clients. We spend some time mapping out who they are developing the product for, what the target consumer's palate, what are their expectations of the flavors, and how to translate that into a clear flavor direction that makes sense for their specific product. So if there's something you are working through right now and would like to support with, go and check my website right now. Right, so here is your challenge for this week. Take one of the 5 flavor trends we talked about today, just one, and think about how it could apply to your current product or your next product development if, again, Gen Z is your target consumer. And ask yourself, what is the Gen Z version of your flavor story? What would need to shift in your current direction to make it feel more relevant to them? Write it down, even just a bullet point, and then step back and have a look. Ask yourself, is my product and flavors currently safe, or are they adventurous and they fit what Gen Z want? Tell me your current flavor in the comments and I will tell you which Gen Z trends it fits into. So that is everything for today. If you found this helpful, please share it with another food and drink founder, subscribe to the channel or follow the podcasts. I also want to put out towards the previous episode, if you haven't listened to it, where we talk more in details about how to research your target consumer palate, which is a really useful companion to this episode. So I will put the link in the description below. As I mentioned earlier, if you are developing a food or drink product for Gen Z and you would like to work through the flavor strategy that goes behind it and how to find your target consumers and understand their palate, drop me a comment below. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!